At the reading of my father's will, the room felt heavy with silence. My sister leaned back in her chair, smirking as if she already knew the outcome. When the lawyer began listing assets, they all fell neatly into her hands. Properties, accounts, investments, every line strengthening her confidence. By the end, she actually laughed, telling me it was all hers, that Dad had left me nothing. My mother couldn't even meet my eyes. I stayed quiet, nodding once, letting her enjoy her moment. What she didn't realize was that my father had entrusted me with something she had completely overlooked. In the weeks that followed, she acted like a queen. She moved into the family mansion, bragged around town, threw extravagant parties, and filled social media with photos taken in Dad's study. To her, this was proof she had won. But buried deep in the legal documents was one sentence she had skimmed past in her rush to celebrate. Ownership of the mansion wasn't valid unless the original deed was presented and verified. That deed wasn't among the lawyer's files. It had been given to me years earlier, tucked safely away in my possession. Dad had pressed it into my hand one quiet evening, telling me her greed would one day blind her, and when it did, I'd know what to do. The reckoning came one Thursday morning. Empty champagne bottles still littered the counters from her latest gathering when the sheriff arrived at her door. Deputies handed her the eviction notice, explaining the house wasn't legally hers. The deed was in my name. The color drained from her face as whispers rose among her guests and neighbors peeked through their curtains. Her triumph dissolved into humiliation right there in the doorway. I arrived not long after, carrying the original deed in a folder. She looked at me, eyes wide and voice trembling, accusing me of letting her play queen while knowing the truth. I reminded her that day in the lawyer's office when she gloated, too blind to notice the details. Dad had predicted this perfectly. She stumbled away with her belongings stuffed in trash bags, the mansion slipping from her grip as quickly as her pride. But the house was only the beginning. Soon she discovered the accounts and investments weren't hers to freely use either. My father had tied every financial resource to joint oversight, requiring both our signatures. Without mine, she couldn't touch a cent. All those millions she bragged about were nothing more than numbers locked away. She called me, pleading and bargaining, insisting I didn't need the money. I never raised my voice. I only told her that Dad had trusted me to protect what he built, not to feed her greed. Her downfall spread quickly. Friends stopped answering her calls. Invitations disappeared, and the people who once cheered her on now laughed behind her back. She wasn't seen as rich anymore. She was seen as reckless and foolish. In desperation, she lashed out at a family gathering, trying to paint herself as a victim. That was when our mother finally spoke, telling her the truth everyone already knew, that Dad had left me with the responsibility because he knew she'd destroy everything if given the chance. That broke her more than losing the mansion. And yet, Dad had prepared one final lesson. Hidden at the end of the will was a clause stating that if any heir acted with selfishness, dishonesty, or wastefulness, their share would be redirected to a scholarship foundation managed by me. After her public collapse, the lawyers enforced it. Every cent she believed was hers went into funding opportunities for students who otherwise couldn't afford an education. She hadn't just lost everything. Her arrogance had turned her supposed inheritance into a gift for strangers she once looked down on. The day she showed up at my door, her face streaked with tears, she accused me of ruining her. I told her calmly that she had ruined herself. Dad had given her a choice, dignity or greed. She chose wrong. For the first time, she had no response. Months later, I sat in Dad's old chair, overseeing the scholarship fund that was already changing lives. Students were preparing to attend universities under his name, not hers. I realized then that this had never been about revenge. It was about ensuring her downfall built something greater. She had once laughed in that office, declaring everything was hers. But in the end, nothing was. Every piece of what she tried to claim became a legacy that honored my father, and left her with nothing at all.